Metaverse-themed podcast.
Hey everyone, Matthew here. Before we begin today's show, I just want to remind everyone of this month's sponsor, Whale Street. Whale Street is the DeFi engine that powers NFT economics on a massive scale. They make huge currency swaps happen, or whale swaps as they're called, with very small slippage costs and without crashing the system. They also engineered the largest ever NFT bundle and fractionalized it into the historic B20 tokens. Whale Street is all about upside, so dip into the liquidity pools for rich rewards. For B20, join discord.com/whale. That's discord.com/WHALE. And follow Whale Street on Twitter @WhaleStreetOFFL. Thank you and enjoy the show. Okay, Pablo and Colborn, thanks for joining me today on the Spotlight. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.
To get started, I think a lot of people that are deep down in the crypto art space are definitely familiar with both of your names, as well as with the project that you're associated with, MoCA, or the Museum of Crypto Art. But I think it would be pretty cool if we can get into some quick backgrounds from both of you and some self-introductions to kind of get this conversation started. Whoever wants to go first, you can rock, paper, scissors.
Pablo, you care to take it?
Sure. I'm Pablo. I have a Spanish background, but I was actually born and raised mostly in the US. I'm based in Miami now. I have a background of mathematics and economics. I've worked in finance, in different things in finance for a few years, and I have an MBA. And after that, after having a wonderful conversation with Colborn, we went into blockchain, and we've been investors in the blockchain world for a few years now. And since the beginning of the year, we have been putting more effort and more views into the NFT space.
Yeah, I'm Colborn, born and raised in Los Angeles, went to school, college in New York, which is where I met Pablo, also studied economics with him, psychology as well, kind of wound a similar path through first investment banking, then was over at the United Nations, some wealth management, and some private family office work before kind of becoming a full blockchain investor. About more than 4 years ago now, kind of weave this path right through the ICO boom, virtual lands, Decentraland, and then found Somnium Space and crypto art. And that is kind of the genesis of this project.
Yeah. And let's get into the project. So with MoCA, I mean, do you guys have a specific mission with what you're building out with that? I know it's not just MoCA. You also have IOCA, like the incubator, and then GOCA, the actual gallery. But specifically with MoCA, I'm just curious if you guys have a mission and want to kind of elaborate on the genesis of that and the progression since you started that until now.
Yeah, I would say back in 2018, I was in a trip to central Brazil and went to a museum called Inhotim, huge multi-acre facility winding through the jungle along the river up into, a big hill where there's an observatory, and dotted all along the way were numerous artist installations. There was a giant mirrored cube. There were these large, construction vehicles that were painted and redone and covered in dried flowers. And I just remembered it being so memorable and powerful. And when we started to look at this investment we had in Somnium Space, which at that time was a largely empty world, we really began to ask ourselves, what is the world that we want to see? And, how do we begin to invite people in? And our answer was really from the arts and culture side. If we create the most beautiful worlds, if we begin to engage some of the leading digital creators in this world, then, we could really create a community and a world that we would want to participate in and we would want to see. So, MoCA kind of sits as, in our mind, the first stepping stone in that surrealist journey into the limitlessness of virtual reality, right? It's a very familiar mental model for somebody to come into. And it really starts to ascribe traditional value in it being a, quote unquote museum, a digital museum for digital artwork.
Yeah, and I feel like it's easy almost to imagine the possibilities of VR, right? It's just there's been a huge gap between what people want to be possible in VR and what's actually possible. So I feel like that connection and intersection between VR, blockchain-based VR, and then crypto art is something very profound and powerful and just very special. So and what you guys are doing on the collecting side is also super interesting, and it makes total sense with that broader vision of kind of building out the future of VR. But I wanted to ask you, when it comes to collecting art, on that spectrum of pure collecting versus pure investing, how do both of you kind of identify on that spectrum?
What an interesting question. Do you want to start, Pablo?
It's a very interesting question. I would say that perhaps we are a little bit of both and a little bit more than both. Meaning we're not the traditional collectors. We're not here just trying to amass, just a collection and just because we like this, but we're actually here trying to build, what we believe it's the next generation and the next wave of how people will interact with immersive art. So we can discuss of how we actually come and make decisions on what artists and what works we support. But I think our mentality, this was born more as a passion project. We're obviously, as the market has been able to see, we're certainly not flippers, but rather, we're looking at creating these experiences that most people find when they experience them very relatable and very easy to connect to the mainstream, the technological advance that is happening here. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Colborn, as well.
Look, there's two things I want to talk about here, and one I think relates very closely to lessons learned in the 2017 ICO boom. And largely we have to assume, right, that it's a pretty similar collector base. I think a lot of people in this space really tend to treat the arts like a commodity or like a coin. But we really have to recognize and be conscious of the fact that, these are people's lives, right? And these are artists that are willing to put themselves out there. The fact that there exists liquidity in this market is both a wonderful thing and a very dangerous thing. I've seen, artists in the traditional world go on a meteoric rise only to fall and never regain standing. And that happens on a period of many years, but here it's very possible that this rise and descent could happen very quickly. And it's something I'm very conscious of, and I worry about what liquidity will do to these artists as people when it's just a number of speculators kind of behind them, flipping and then adding on top of it the volatility of Ethereum. It's, potentially a dangerous combo. I consider myself a collector, and I consider the collection that we've built, to have been just like a wonderful therapeutic exercise in kind of bringing cohesiveness at a time when things were very distraught and disorderly. It was something to focus into and really see like what is the highest and best use, and how do we take these pieces that people are putting forward and begin to like build environments that speak and tell the story and immersive art, and how do we continue to elevate and build use case and show value. And I think we've done quite well there.
And just real quick, talking about the collection that you've amassed, it's a beautiful collection, but if you can hit us with some high level numbers of what's in your collection and things like that, I think that'd be pretty cool.
I believe I'm still the top collector on Super Rare with like 514 works collected. I was probably the first major collector in Rareable. I followed a lot of artists there for their early works and haven't collected much since then, but there's probably another couple hundred there for me, maybe 400 or 500 there, considerable amount of async makers plays, known origin as well. I'd say the collection is probably over 2,000 pieces of NFT artwork at this point.
I do want to, if you don't mind, I want to comment on the previous question. One thing that, while we're certainly more on the collecting side, meaning we actually care about the art and we want to do this, and we actually really want the works, and we go into the close relationships with the artist. One thing that at least was fun for me and important for me, because I believe it's important in any industry, is, professionalizing and putting some sense into the market, building the market as we go along, and just we believe that having actual the liquidity, even though it's, as Colborn said, it can be a little bit dangerous, just having a proper market and having the proper infrastructure, just the correct things happening in the right ways in the market can really lead to some growth, as we have seen. And for us, that was quite a fun experience.
Yeah, and the one thing, especially being a really early stage of this crypto art market, is the fact that you can be a significant market makers yourself, and a single purchase can be what turns on people to this market and brings in new liquidity, new collectors, new artists. I think it's a really powerful just thing to be aware of, especially as an early collector in the space. But what are some tools that you guys really think that are conspicuously missing from a lot of the sites and galleries out there that should become table stakes heading forward in the not too distant future?
There's so many things, right? The just basic credit card functionality to start for the marketplace. Yeah, the fact that none of these marketplaces really have gallery viewing rooms is huge. The data that is provided is awful. And I know there's smart people looking at it and solving these problems. What else really? I mean, there is certainly when we start to consider, what is going to be, high-end fine art, digital art, how crypto art is going to bleed into traditional. I don't think there is a UI UX that has captured the essence of that. And I don't even know exactly what that is going to be, or who that first, we've seen some crossover candidates. I don't know. That's a hard thing for me to try and describe. It's kind of a know it when you see it thing.
I would like to add that one thing that is very important, and we have seen a little bit of moves in this regard, but I believe things need to start being priced in dollars, the dollars or stable coin or something like that, if we want to move outside of the crypto niche, which might be slightly saturated already from the NFTs. If we want to go mainstream, we really need to make it easy for no coiners to come into the space.
100%, especially on the last point. But I'm curious to hear from both of your perspectives. How do you, or how would you describe each of your individual tastes? Do you think it would be cool if you describe one another's taste as opposed to your individual taste? Or do you think it would be more valuable to just talk about it from your own subjective perspective on your own?
You want me to start? Okay, I'll talk about Pablo. I've known Pablo for 13 years, right? And he has this incredible mathematic, precise brain. He likes to bring order to the world. You see it reflected in, obviously, the pack pieces and his gravitation there, right? Temporary minimalism, ordered a very strong design aesthetic, which I think, doesn't just run through him, but runs through his whole family. Something like Arc4G, I think he was first to, again, bringing order to chaos, relying on the numbers, that heavy finance mathematical brain.
And then Pablo, how would you describe Colborn's taste?
I'm not sure I can do this, unfortunately. Do you want to start it up, Colborn, and then maybe I'll continue?
Look, the only thing that I look for is just raw emotion, right? I want the artwork to speak to something that is deep inside, that reminds me of any sort of feeling. So I don't mind things that are messier, right? I'm interested in art for the passion of it and the vibrance it brings. I can certainly relate to like a clean line design and aesthetic, but again, once you start to, I think, know us and know our personalities, you start to understand like how these two sides of us really come together to make kind of something more whole and complete.
I would add on top of that Colborn, one thing that I really like about the pieces that he collects is he really actually goes deep into the meanings of the pieces for those that carry some meaning. Those pieces that are really hiding something or telling something. Those are the ones that Colborn is always behind, and I really like that because it really creates these relationships with the creators behind that are a lot more profound than the general transactional ones that we're seeing in the markets.
That's a good point. And then, well, to kind of balance everything out, since Colborn, you had the chance to describe Pablo and then describe your own taste. Pablo, if you want to talk about your own taste from your own perspective, I think that'd be a great way to wrap this section up.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I have a particular taste just focus on one thing. What I do focus though, it's whatever is done, I like it to be done very, very, very well, like properly, if that makes any sense. Where I understand that art is all about creativity, but I do like to see some order, as Colborn said, in that creativity, and just whatever is done that is thoughtful, that is properly put out, and I see a lot of value in that. And I don't know about the stuff, but one of the things that I really focus on is would I be collecting this art if it was outside of being tokenized? So is tokenization only the thing that is bringing me to this art, that is the fact that I'm finding it here, or is this actually something that I would show and be happy to show anywhere, no matter where I went? And that's pretty important for me. Yeah, I was quite. I understand how the movement started, but I was quite focused on moving away from the crypto, for example, from the crypto-based art, if that makes any sense. So the symbolism and all of those things that I believe, again, are important. I understand why people like them, and I do like some of them myself, but I do think that as the market matures and we move more to the mainstream, I do just believe that, crypto art will not be just a small niche within art. I just believe all art will be tokenized, and therefore, we need to start looking at what art is, just using this as the technology.
I love these sorts of insights, getting into the minds of the collectors. Do you guys have any frameworks of your own that you like to apply when it comes to collecting art?
I think two very important things here. We really have moved away from collecting individual pieces, and now what we try to do is we really try to get together and closer to an artist. So for us, it's less about like the decision of an art piece and more about what the artist is putting forward. So the most important thing is the creator behind actually dealing with their creations in a proper and professional manner. Do they, and this ties to the second point, which is, do they have a good collector base? One thing that for us is very, very bad, we think is going to play very bad in the future. There seems to be this craze for selling everything or giving everything to the highest bidder. Everything is a time auction for these, incredible works that are, in our opinion, so much more important that the right person, the right collector has it. That then is going to be an ambassador for you, that is going to go out and show your work and is going to be proud, than just arbitrarily somebody that can just spend a little bit more at that time for it, and then it's going to just lock it away and put it out. So for me, at least, in my opinion, it's very, 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 very important how thoughtful and how the creator behind is thinking about the career, as well as obviously like in the piece. But the decision making for me relies on the second part.
Yeah, I think there's so many good points in there. Let's see what else I can add to that. when we came in, there were a couple other giants in the space, right? So initially coming in, you take notice of what these people are doing, and you begin to ask yourself, well, why are these people doing this? I would understand right now that it is probably a lot harder for collectors to decide, because it seems like the marketplace has been just flooded with new artists, right? It seems like the most common metric people use is going to be social media followers, right? Or at least maybe that's how the marketplaces seem to be curating themselves. It seems there's a premium for youth, which I can understand. And it seems like there's been lately, premiums for stuff like 3D artworks and audio visual collaborations, and kind of just being in the space long enough, every day, 12 hours a day, you've seen enough to kind of begin to know what is going to speak to you and what fits into our collection. I mean, we have so many pieces at this point that we have a management problem, right? So knowing where everything is, knowing how to curate, knowing which assets should go where and how to display them, it's difficult, because at the end of the day, we can only put 50, 60 pieces in our museum, maybe 8 to 10 if we do solo shows, and then another handful in our gallery. So at this point, maybe only 5-10% of our collection is being shown. What other mental, Pablo, speaking about just who the collectors are, knowing who the collectors are, they're just are collectors that have a reputation for flipping. And the fact of the matter is that, an auction format is not conducive for an artist, right? If these people are willing to, go out and build a career, well, then they also have to decide if they want to be the artist as the entrepreneur and handle their own marketing, or if they just want to create, right? And so, your biggest advocates are going to be your collectors, right? They're the ones that are going to sit with you on the journey. Now, if you put one of your best pieces into the hands of somebody that's going to flip it the next day for a couple $100, it's just not attractive from a collector side, because it shows irresponsibility. And these are all lessons that, we're learning together, because it is so new, but the record of that is permanent.
So I'm curious if you guys can talk about some of the alternative procurement strategies that you engage in to collect work. I think it'll be interesting for other people to hear what other ways exist outside of these sometimes pretty crazy public auctions.
I mean, it's all in that relationship, right? It's all in developing that relationship with the artist. At some point you have to build a collection, and you have to show taste, and you have to show what you're doing if you want that door to open to artists, right? You have to come in, you have to be willing to spend the time, you have to be willing to spend the money. And then, with that and showing that you're committed and doing the work, then you can begin to have, conversations with these artists where, at least I feel comfortable in myself, like now with what we've built, going to an artist and saying, hey, I love this piece. I'd like to get to know you better. We never make a deal with somebody unless we get on a Google Meet or FaceTime and see them face to face and get to know this person and know if this is somebody that we can work with, right? It's really, you can fall in love with a piece, but if you can't work with the person and know that they're going to be here forever and have and share the same passion, and they're not kind of just like moonlighting as a crypto artist, but that they live and bleed it as much as, Pablo and I live and bleed this, it's really easy to sniff out, I think, somebody that is in this for the love of this and somebody that is in this for, I don't know, trying to get a discount on incredible art. Like, there's been a quote that's in my head and I can't get it out. It's that there's no price too high for something that is priceless, right? And these are like all one-of-one creations. Again, it's an incredible responsibility. It's not like you're flipping a an ICO coin or another altcoin. Like, these are people's lives, and the decisions that you do and how you price and how you market is incredibly important. How you represent the work is effectively, speaking to that person's soul. So these were all like very tough lessons that we had to learn along the way, that have kind of, I think, at least made us better people and more understanding people of how we can have these relationships to do whatever, bundle deal or direct sale or, asking somebody to mint something on OpenSea, something like this, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And then the next question is, what are we talking about, or what are we focusing on too much right now when it comes to crypto art?
Yeah, I think the scarcity and abundance thing is totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, right? You're trying to like put economic constraints on somebody's creativity. There's just not enough collectors in the thing. You're going to, tell somebody you need to be a certain way to market yourself. It just is very like anti-art ethos, in my opinion. It's basically like the marketplace is coming in and telling artists how they should be, or a curator telling somebody how they should be. I hate that. I don't think we have obviously like a remix problem as a community, and drawing the line at what is acceptable.
I think that the last point that you mentioned is very important, and it ties in general to the thought that just because things are on the blockchain, nothing like common social or business practices don't apply. I believe that there's a lot of talk in Twitter going on around some topics that are very, very, very clear that outside of this industry they would not ever be discussed because they're in black and white. There's no and here we just keep on going over them. So I think that's a bigger problem than what it might seem. This whole remix copying thing.
Yeah, definitely. And then the flip side to that question is like, because we're focusing on all these other things and topics, what are we missing out on? What are we not focusing on or talking about enough?
In our opinion, there's still not enough people actually showcasing the collections. In our opinion, there's been a big move lately we're seeing a lot more initiatives in this regard, but there's still a lot of people that purchase things just to keep it, in their account, in their wallet, in the vault, and not enough talk about exhibitions, about doing actual things with the assets that they purchase.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. What are we not talking about? We're not talking about the collectors. I think the collectors themselves are not having conversations about the art, right? That's my biggest complaint. There are a couple collectors that we've connected with that have art backgrounds, but we as a collector community haven't figured out how to come together and collectively tell artist stories.
I feel like that those points are very related, right? There has to be more ambassadors, and the collector side, yes, we need better ambassadors. We need more people like you guys that are really putting in the legwork and making the investment and time and money to really tell these stories in an engaging way, in a way that is super true to the artist and really highlights the best of their creation. But in my mind, I feel like heading forward, the best ambassadors in this space are going to be artists themselves telling their stories, right?
But I'm gonna just interject real quick there. Like, nobody really is as interested when you talk about yourself, if that makes sense. When somebody else is talking about you and giving you that praise and you that regard for being this way, it feels more genuine and trustworthy. So I definitely think it's on the artists themselves to put the information out there for the collectors to then carry and bring forward. Right? Nobody wants to listen to somebody saying, look at me, I'm so great.
Oh, so where I was going with the ambassadorship, so I think there's a really big distinction between promotion, right? Self-promotion in particular, and then kind of shining a light on the space as a whole, right? And what I'm talking about, artists being ambassadors in that regard, is not in a way to promote themselves, but it's a way to kind of shine a light on the overall space, on what's possible, other great artists. I mean, one of the amazing aspects I think of crypto art is the fact that there's so many artists themselves who are also collectors, right?
Yes.
So what I'm talking about is very much the opposite of what you're calling out as something that's obviously not super impactful or effective, right? Just to clarify where I'm coming from. Does that make sense?
Yes. I would like to add one thing that it goes maybe more with the previous point, but one thing that we've been seeing that is happening in this space, and it's a pity really, is that all the focus seems to be on the artist, making everything for the artists and the creators, and to make everything happy, very good for them. But we forget that if we want an actual market here to exist, we need to treat the collectors much, much better than what they're treated. Now, we obviously have no problems of creators, meaning we have thousands and thousands of new creators joining, like it's been a huge explosion, but we do have obviously right now a small collector problem. And part of it, in my opinion, is because there's not the infrastructure, and again, the credit card that we were talking about before, and the fiat pricing. But part of me as well is because there's really no effort from the community or from the platforms to really cater to the needs of these collectors as any other gallery outside would. I think that's been a major thing from us now. Now that we are, gaining a little bit more size and more recognition, things are changing for us a little bit. But we still talk to other collectors, and again, they're just the treatment for the collector side from most of the community and from many of the platforms is certainly not what it should be.
On that point, I mean, what would that expected or ideal treatment from the galleries and marketplaces to collectors? Like, what does that look like? What should that look like?
Yeah, it could be something as simple as, a marketplace reaching out and say, like, we know what you like to collect. Come take a look at this new artist. We think it really much matches your style.
Or not only that, or on top of that, just the same way that when they congratulate, certain artists for certain sales, like also just being more in touch, more of this white glove service that you're expected when you're buying what things that are supposed to be more high end, And again, if you have any problem, any issue, obviously, result at the end of the day, we're using decentralization tools, but most of these marketplaces, I mean, there's nothing decentralized about them, aside from the fact that we use the auction system in a decentralized manner. But they have to understand that if you don't make it very easy and you don't make your customers, well, at the end, your customers are the collectors, not the artists. If you don't treat them very well and make their life extremely good, they just won't be engaged.
100% support that. Who do you see these artist ambassadors being? People that are obviously not simply self-promoting themselves, but showing and telling and presenting the best of what the space is in a way that brings more people here.
You know my answer there. Yeah. So I'll let Colborn. I'm just going to say back and let Colborn answer the rest.
Yeah, I mean, Pac is obvious. We know of 20, 30, 40 creators that he's brought in just himself, right? Because he's so deep in this design community and the dollars that he's making speak. I think, and I've had this conversation with someone like Ferocious, you have to step up and be a leader in that young generation to tell people that this is the way to monetize your art. It's not stickers and merchandise. And if you are a young artist, bring your works digital and bring them to the market. I mean, alone, how many people has Ferocious brought on? It's astronomical. If another 16 to 22-year-old sees, one of their peers making $20,000 on an artwork, right? That's going to attract some eyeballs. Gosh, who else has been an incredible evangelist and ambassador for the space?
I mean, a lot of people. Literally, I do believe that the one thing this industry does very well is actually that trying to reach out and actually, showcasing a lot of people what is happening here, and we've been pretty successful. If you see what's been happening in the last few months of the attraction of both sides of the equation. But yeah, probably the one that stands out the most for me would be by far and away PAC.
I would also say a lot of the emerging market artists are doing it out of necessity, right? We see this incredible revolution, cultural renaissance happening in Argentina because of just the political and economic crisis that's there, right? These artists are forced to go online and try and find a global market for their works. There's a similar thing happening in Mexico as well. Incredible emerging market talent. Which is, incredibly, I would say, disruptive to what would be like an LA, New York, Miami, Hong Kong, Basel art scene, right? It's suddenly that we have a true global open market and people are it's competition.
100%. And then from your perspectives, like when it comes to showing off digital art and crypto art in the metaverse, in blockchain-based VR worlds like Somnium Space, at a high level, like where are we today? And then where are we going to be going? Where will we be this time next year?
I would say right now it's still all incredibly experimental, right? I think we have us kind of playing in a patchwork, more democratic, bringing all the pieces together. And I think there are major like Hollywood studios that are really pushing for, full photorealistic VR experiences. And I think that we find something that meets somewhere in the middle in about a year, as VR headsets get better, as processing power gets stronger, eventually we are going to be running like fully local simulations in those headsets that are quite photorealistic. And, with Facebook behind Oculus and with Apple putting out their AR glasses, we know there is going to be this tremendous transition of humanity deeper into the digital and deeper into these infinite worlds, and how art and creators and, those people that can kind of tap back into their imagination of what these future spaces will look like will be incredibly successful.
To that point, though, I do think that even if a major studio comes in and tries to, compete with some of these metaverses that we see now, I do believe that they'll have a very tough time because there is something special about the user-generated content. And apologies, I have some noise in the background. But there is something that whenever you purchase land in one of these metaverses, you actually build something and you go in there to your own creation and you experience it pretty much like a second after you upload it. That's very sticky. That is very, very sticky. It would be very difficult for me to start this journey again somewhere else, knowing all the time, effort and just thoughtfulness that we've put into building this. Just because when you own the land and when you build your own thing, it's very personal. It's very yours. That's the way I see it. So, and I also think it makes for more interesting like builds and some builds that you just wouldn't see if it was a company behind just trying to push certain builds. But what I always say, and the discussion that I have when I speak to some of the founders of these metaverses, they should arrive at a hybrid where they mostly focus on user-generated content, but then they also work together with some other, bigger companies and projects to actually bring content that is, professional, high level, and what you would come to expect from the traditional world.
I would echo that and say that community is incredibly sticky. Right. And, in identifying with one of these worlds, you are identifying with a part of yourself that is also connecting with other people. So it's hard to, I think, almost cross metaverses, although I think, I mean, there's only so much time in the day, right? And you can't be doing everything. So, maybe at this stage, while each one is kind of building siloed, we have to choose. But I think eventually it'll be, very interoperable, and we'll just be jumping between worlds as simple as we would be jumping between web pages.
What is your solo gallery and solo exhibition schedule looking like for the artists that you've collected?
Good question. We have certainly a list of names, and we kind of just go one by one. The thing is that, we are very perfectionist, and we will probably do a revision of a building 10, 15 times before we say, okay, this is 100%. So we don't really know what will be ready when, but we are very, very close on a new one. And, a adventurous traveler of Somnium space would be able to figure out. We always value doing your own research. Like, we have segmented collections on OpenSea of, MoCA dash somebody, where we have identified we have a certain number of artworks from that particular person and are planning to do something unique around that collection.
Everyone listening, do your damn research.
Nothing comes easy, nothing comes for free,
There you go. Well, I do want to be respectful of your guys' time. I have a couple questions that I don't normally ask anyone, but I think being who you guys are, I think it would be really interesting to kind of do some quick word association questions, and then wrapping up with one last question after that. But I have just a list of some of the marketplaces, galleries in the space, and some of the metaverse worlds. I'm just going to throw out the name and be curious to hear how you guys think about these projects. That's okay.
But it's in trouble.
That's what I'm hoping for. But if we say anything that we don't want to say, we can go back. But just want to see how it goes, and we'll just go in this order. There's about 11 or 12. We'll see how it goes. Pablo and then Colborn. We'll just trade off like that. Okay, so first up, it's easy one, super rare.
Legacy.
Oh man, that's not easy. Just first, it's where I was first.
There we go. Nifty Gateway.
Mainstream.
Yeah, hype.
Known origin.
Unknown.
Yeah, my thought was addition.
Async art.
I need more than one word. Yeah, they deserve it. I mean, async is just. I'll just give the full description. It's my favorite project. I think they're the people that are actually bringing innovation into the space in a way that is outside of just, they're selling through or tokenizing the work. I very much like the team and just how they represent and they go around just building things and the relationships with. I'm a big fan of async, so the short word would be preferred.
Yeah, Pablo, your check's in the mail, man. Look, async is insane. Async is like the project I love to show people because of that innovation.
Yeah, totally. Okay, back to one words now. We give everyone a pass for async because they deserve it. Baker's Place.
For me, that's White Glove.
Aye, that's a good one. User experience.
OpenSea.
I think the word is in the name. That is just a data project.
Collectible.
Yeah, I don't think we'd be anywhere without OpenSea. That's like the bedrock.
Foundation.
That's the foundation.
Rareable.
Trash.
Dumpster fire.
Yeah. The last crypto art specific related one. Blockchain art exchange.
I like Sasha. Every time I think he's doing. Can I speak about this?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I have not been a purchaser there per se, but I respect everything that he is doing in wanting to build a marketplace and working himself to put the art forward. So I would just say, respect from the art side.
There's a couple new extra platforms that I actually like. The general focus on how they're approaching things. Yeah, I like Ephemera. I like what they're doing there. I think they're being very thoughtful about many things that are missing from the other platforms and in the industry in general. I do like the bigger file size as well. They have some limitations because of everything being photo based, but I also like the team. I like Virgen del Crypto. He's I don't know. I just like what I'm seeing from and the thoughtfulness I'm seeing from the project. And then I very much like this other project as well that has been here for a little bit longer, which is Foundation. I don't know if I should say this, but I perhaps they were a little bit too early for the XDAI, which is a great, amazing product, and it works very well. And it's a platform that really functions very well, and I very much like it. I just feel they were slightly early for the XDAI, and the market wasn't ready. But aside from that, I really like a lot of things about Foundation.
Yeah, the Foundation is definitely a cool one. Ephemera, they're coming on the whip soon. I really want to kind of dig into what they're doing. I like their specific focus. I think that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The next list is just with the metaverse worlds. This should be a bit easier, but starting off with CryptoVoxels.
Accessible.
I guess the word that comes voxels, squares. Yeah.
Yep. Decentraland.
Community.
Innovation and cartoon.
Somnium space.
Wow.
Is that you're choosing? Is that the word, Colborn? Wow.
it's I'm just like, I get so blown away every time I put on that headset and it does that like THX like and then you're like in the metaverse. Yeah, it's just like I'm just awestruck.
For me, it will be certainly immersion.
I guess no one's really experienced it. You test it out, but Sandbox
pre-sale.
Yeah. Infinite pre-sales.
It's just like a big corporate, I think.
It's all fair. That was fun. I think that was interesting. And then the last question, it's an easy one. We'll wrap up on this. What are the last 3 artists that you've scooped individually?
I bought a beautiful piece we were working on it for a while with Claudia Linke. What about you, Pablo? I mean, we haven't particularly been buying too much.
Yeah, so I am very, very happy because after many months, I actually was able to grab the one that for me got away, which is an Algo Mystic piece that I really like since the beginning, and I was just not around when he went through, and I was very happy with that. I also very much respect Algo Mystic. For all the work that he has done both here and previously to here, in the traditional world. I've been collecting lately, I've collected Andres Reisinger, who I think is going to be a superstar. And I think the previous one, was a pack, the last pack.
I want to take this opportunity, shout out like all the incredible artists who have donated us pieces. Like to me,
what?
Yeah, like top down, that seeing that from the artists and being like them saying like, this is the piece I want you to have and to showcase it. Number 41, I think was the first one to really like donate us something incredibly valuable, incredibly personal. Esteban Diabanco gave us a beautiful personal piece that he recovered from a hard drive. Karen 4D sent us just an amazing computer generated program that he wrote, something from Felix. And then Algo Mystic recently. It's all emojis. This is wonderful.
We've had several others in the past as well. I think Martyrium at one point also gave us a wonderful gift. A couple, but it's just as Colborn says, it's when creators start valuing, the work that you're putting and the efforts, and and start like actually enjoying that relationship, and it's very powerful. It's very powerful for us, and it's the reason why we actually do what we do. At the end of the day, again, this was a passion project. It's still a passion project now. It's obviously getting a little bit more size, and it's professionalizing a bit, but it's still a passion project. And for us, this is really, as Colborn says, it's what makes it.
God, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm here. I think that's why people, when they come in here, they realize what's going on. That's why they stay. Well, both of you have been super generous with your time, talking with me, answering these questions. I just want to give each of you the chance to kind of shout anything out that you want to hype up, or let people know that they should be on the lookout for, and leave folks with your last words before we sign off.
Wow, it's been such a journey, and I just want to, from everybody that just brought us in from the beginning, that showed us so much love, that really just opened up this community, deepest, most heartfelt thanks. There's something incredibly special here, and it's because of the people involved, and it was because of the people that were attracted to it in the first place. And we sit to try and hold that spirit together of this love and this openness and willingness to collaborate that was shown to us. And I think this, where we differentiate ourselves from the traditional art world will be in this, and how we bring these communities into metaverse spaces, and how we all come together. And I know temperatures can run hot, and crypto art is drama. But, if we don't have each other, then we don't have anything. This is kind of how beautiful things have always been built. So I just encourage anybody to lean and continue to lean into that feeling, and bring more and more people into this space, show them how to get involved, teach them, be ambassadors for what this is and what this means, and look out for others. And, if you put others first, you've really seen that it reflects in multitudes back to you.
Yeah, just first I'll start with the general recommendation and just general comments. It's, this is a space that, it's the most high-paced industry I've ever been at, and I've been involved in the early stage industries in the past. And it's I believe that we need to have a very collaborative mindset rather than very competitive mindset, because it's just not enough people and not enough time to do all the things that need to be built in order for this to actually grow out of the niche that we currently have, to really reach everybody. So just try to be collaborative. There's a lot of people here that are doing this with passion, with actually liking what they do. And I think it's better to find ways to work together than to try to compete against in the same fields. And then, echoing a little bit of what Colborn said, at least for me, from my side, these last few months have been absolutely transformational. In a very positive way. I have, made very, very profound relationships with a lot of people along the way. And for the first time, I've always been lucky enough that I've enjoyed what I do. But for the first time, I actually what I do every day is actually my passion. And it's just, I want to say thank you, because what's happening here is something very unique. The start of something that's going to be absolutely revolutionary, and just very, very happy to just, be part of the people that are writing this history, and guiding a little bit, how the industry should be. So very, very thankful for that.
Wow, that's perfect. And thank you again, both of you, Pablo and Colborn, for taking the time to chat with me. I can't wait to go back and listen to this personally, as a fan of what you guys have been doing. It's so cool to do a deep dive into your approach and all the thought that you put behind everything that you do. And I just wish you two and the whole project nothing but the best, and keep on creating and spreading the good word of crypto art and the metaverse.
Let me just add to you, thank you for all the work that you've done. You were here before us. You laid foundation that allowed us to do what we could do. Without you, we would not be here, right? So just infinite gratitude for all that you're doing and for giving us this platform.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Cheers. Hey, everyone. Matthew here. Thank you for listening to today's show. I just want to remind everyone of this month's sponsor, Whale Street. Whale Street is the DeFi engine that powers NFT economics on a massive scale. They make huge currency swaps happen, or whale swaps as they're called, with very small slippage costs and without crashing the system. They also engineered the largest ever NFT bundle and fractionalized it into the historic B20 tokens. Whale Street is all about upside, so dip into the liquidity pools for rich rewards. For B20, join discord.com/whale. That's discord.com/WHALE. And follow Whale Street on Twitter @WhaleStreetOFFL. Thank you, and see you next episode.
Send podcast. Send podcast. Send podcast. Send podcast.